Most business owners don't build their business thinking about exit. And I think it is the critical step that they're missing. And as I said earlier on, it's not just about, I talk about it as exit, but it's not just about exit by sale. It might be exit by operation, where they can sit as, they exit the business from an operational perspective and they sit as an investor. But ultimately, if you build your business, or if our clients build their business in a sale ready state, they're strong from the perspective, the business is strong, but also they have options available to them if things change that they're not aware of. One of the key things that I would love you to think about as you're working with your clients is helping them think not just about the business today, but how do they need to build their business so that it's always in a sale ready state, so that it's geared for exit, so that exit, whether it's sale, whether it's them stepping back, but it's geared for that position so that if they ever needed to sell, they're in a great place to do that. So the question is, what makes a business valuable at exit? What builds value in a business? Talk about this. We've already talked about running in a sale ready state is the best way. So here's the things that I look at from the perspective of building an excellent exit. And it's about preparing, and we're going to spend most time on that, but it's also about building, recognizing the value in a business and building it in a way that's transferable, protecting the business so it's not seeping value along the way, and then the process of sale and deal structure, which we don't need to talk about today. So preparation. So there's a number of elements, and this may or may not be relevant to you in dealing with your clients, but I just at least want to pass it on. When, as businesses prepare to exit, at that point, it's only often at that point that they suddenly start to get knowledgeable about what business structure works best for them at exit. And the reality is many of our clients will be sitting in business structures that are completely, that will be counterproductive from a tax perspective at exit. And they're making decisions along the way that are minor decisions to them right now. That make no difference really to their operation, whether they choose A or B, without realizing the difference of choosing A versus B in what their structure will look like at exit in terms of tax that they'll have to pay. And this is a whole subject in and of itself, and may not be something that you want to dig deep into, but it's just an example of the sorts of things that our clients are making decisions about each day. If they don't have the path clear in front of them of where they want to be in 5 years or 10 years time, they're not making the right, not necessarily taking the right advice today for how to structure their business and how their business should look from those perspectives. So be structured from day one with exit in mind is one of the things that I think is absolutely critical. And the funny story is, I told you the story about Ted. Ted was a good news story. There was, however, a slightly bad news side to his story, and that resulted in him paying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds thousand more in tax than he needed to on exit, because one of the things he hadn't thought to do was engage with his accountants right from the beginning and work out whether he was structured properly for exit. So he was a very happy man, happy at the end of the day. But one of the things that he just hadn't realised until he got to the point of exit was that he'd been incorrectly structured all of these years. So that's an important thing for you, I guess, your clients to be aware of. Get ready for a buyer to lift the hood. So when a business hits the market, a buyer will come in and will do due diligence on a business. And it's at that point when they can show that the value in the business is protected through systems and processes, that a buyer gets that confidence in the business. Because there's this little trick in business sales where quite often buyers will come in and often a certain price, sophisticated buyers will offer a certain price. When you get into due diligence, they get into the business, they see it's a mess, they see it's not organised, they see there's lack of systems and processes, they can see, risks appear in the business, then they'll start to whittle down the sale value. So they'll come back, renegotiate the price, renegotiate the terms. So we want to put our clients in the position that they've really, they've really clearly set up the structures in their business to look clean when a buyer lifts the hood. Understand key value, and I'll talk about that next, and then really I'll move to questions if you have any. Go through the elements in the Fortify process. We talked about Fortify already. Build the deal team early. And this is about having advisors in place for them who understand the ultimate goal of exit and what they need to do in their business to make it strong to get to that point of exit. And run your business in a sale ready state. So I talked about all that already. So this is just the last key area I'll talk about here, value. We've talked about the risks in a business, but I just want to talk about the value. One of the things, and you perhaps already do this as a matter of course, but when businesses are growing, one of the things that I think is very important for them is to understand their business from a buyer's perspective. So that's being able to look at their business from the outside in as well as the inside out, if that makes sense. And all SMEs should have an idea of what the key value drivers are in their industry. So there are some things that are generally of value in all industries. Say, for example, most businesses, in many businesses, a large majority, staff will be critical. That will form a critical area of value. Customers will form a critical area of value. But there are many other differences in businesses in what that value is. And from a legal perspective, we think, okay, where is that value and how is it that that value will ultimately transfer to a buyer? So you come up with that list of key areas. So let's say the two key areas are just customers and staff, and then whatever the other key areas are. The question is, how does that transfer to a buyer? And in many businesses, that concept of customer transfer is hugely problematic because the customer is connected to the individual owner or the founder. And that means in order for a buyer to extract value out of the sale, they either need the seller to stay in the business for a large period of time, or they have the sale price contingent on the client staying there when it's under new management. The reality is, in those types of businesses, once a buyer comes on board, in many instances, it is a destabilization point for customers. Customers do leave. And when you have the value that a buyer is willing to pay that's contingent on the future performance of the business, they're the businesses where you see, well, the earnouts aren't triggered. They don't get paid that extra amount. The buyers will pay far less up front, want far more paid in the future when the customers stay, and then you have that risk. So when you're talking about how you create a highly saleable business, when you're talking about how to create a business that has value or strong value at sale, it's about understanding what these key elements of value are and how you actually lock them in. And as I said before, I've got dot points in the book that aren't even necessarily, there are legal mechanisms and there are more operational mechanisms. And some of those, like operational mechanism, one example is finding a way to build in recurring revenue. That's an example of clients who are on recurring revenue contracts are more likely to be sticky to the business. And then, the buyer will see the value transfer far more easily than in a business where there's not that recurring revenue element. And there's not that reason that the clients have to keep coming back month after month and that stickiness. Does that make sense? So that's sort of an example. There's legal mechanisms that I set out in the book, but there's also these operational mechanisms. And I think it's all about thinking like a buyer, thinking in terms of value, and then locking that, how that value will transfer and locking that in. And that sort of comes back to that discussion that we're having before. What is the value in systems? What is the value that you can talk to your clients about bringing? It's coming back to that, building yourself for an ultimate exit, or building their business in a way that it is a saleable asset always is it requires them to have solved that issue of value transferability.